Let's take a look inside Mr. Gibson's public speaking classroom.
Who's ready for the best night of their lives, huh?
Teacher Apartment Studios back to talk to you today about delivery. Domino's would say in 30 minutes or less. I would say that you would only be so lucky. But I do find this to be one of the most fascinating conversations that I can have with students and with you virtual students. Keep in mind, as talked about previously in the goals video, your delivery goal is to deliver congruent messages, to make sure that the tone and the body language are aligned with the words to create a singular, more powerful message. In attempting to get students to understand what it looks like when they read their speeches, here is the sad penguin. You don't see it? The poor penguin he's reading a book and he's looking down. He's making eye contact with the tile floor. I hope it's tile. The sound waves are traveling from mouth and hitting tile and bouncing back and smacking the poor penguin in the face. And look at that poor neck. Can you even do that with your neck? I think that might be humanly impossible. It might have to take you to the hospital. Oh. Hands holding on to the roller coaster ride that is the notes, the book. It's my job, it's my goal to help you avoid being a sad penguin. So let's talk about what strategies you can use to avoid doing that. One of the strategies that you could use is write out your speech and memorize it. Now, I know students in my class, I don't have an expectation that you memorize your speech. I mean, you're still going to have to practice it. But I think it's worth mentioning the pros and the cons to this particular approach. Right, the pros are, think Steve Jobs, other very well-articulated speeches, right? They get in there and the words, and they find ways to be figurative language, and they're able to make loops and use all of these writing strategies that you may not get out that first time, right? In that first draft, you might not catch all of the moments to elaborate or to be more specific, to paint a better picture. And so you've written it out, it's beautiful, you've memorized it, and now you're completely free. You don't have a book, you don't have note cards, your hands are free to deliver the speech, your eyes are able to look out into the sea of thirsty audience members hanging on every word that you have to say. Ding. But what happens, because you've memorized this word for word, what happens if you were to forget the next word, sentence, phrase, or if you were to see somebody that was staring at the floor, they're giving 100%, and you've got people giving you the RBF. So you can't help but think, why are they thinking? What are they thinking? Why would they be thinking that when I've been telling this story? And you get so caught up in those thoughts, or maybe you hear yourself bumble over some words or something of that sort, and then you lose your spot. Now, I've watched professionals and well-experienced amateurs handle that very well. But in the case of novice speakers, quite often, right, you can very easily see the unfortunately, in some of the most uncomfortable situations, I've actually watched the speaker flee the stage. It makes sense. Fight or flight. So there are some pros and some cons to writing out your speech and memorizing it. Another approach would be to work off of a 3x5 card, right? Or even, that being said, note cards that are larger than 3x5 cards. I have a picture here of Tracy McMillan, and she's using a brick. It's an 11-minute speech, and she has a brick of what might be 5x7 note cards. And clearly in this picture, and if you were to watch the speech, you can see she's still able to deliver the speech. I mean, look at her head, how it's pointed out, and her hands are free. So again, she's still able to deliver. What I would probably predict is that she has some reminders on those note cards, and they're probably written in a large font, so it's very easy to go, huh? And then you're right back into delivering your speech and not reading, because I want to make sure that, at least from my educational delivery to you, that there's a distinction, there's a difference. One of the speeches that I ask students to watch in this class is the Steve Jobs 2005 commencement speech, right, to the graduating Stanford class. In just a moment, I'm going to show you how I might create a talking points note card for his speech. Okay, so the pros are, right, again, just like I mentioned with Tracy, very free to be and deliver speech. But the cons is that there is that possibility that if you are asked to speak for a particular amount of time, that you might rush your points. You might forget maybe some key information that, was just kind of hinged upon. You had a little reminder, and there was something really valuable there that you were going to say. But again, you're looking out into the sea of people that are thirsty for what you have to say, and you find yourself going, I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up. So you're going to want to make sure that you practice that strategy as well. There's that word, right? You got to do the practice, you got to do the prep work. And so even using that strategy, you're going to want to use. You're going to want to practice. Cell phones, tablets also would work similar if you're using tech now instead of the paper approach. Could also work like a 3x5, a 5x7 note card. Now, pros, right? Again, use of tech. Some possible cons. I will leave it up for you to imagine other ones, but this is a worst case scenario. I had a student absolutely reading speech from cell phone. This happens. And then more reading of the speech to the people. I'm trying to make eye contact with the kid, but I'm reading of the speech, and then more reading of the speech. Now, if you didn't figure out what happened, I had a pretty good idea the first time. The second time I knew 100% without a doubt. The time on the cell phone, you have the ability to lengthen the amount of time that you have before it screens out, before it goes to a password protected or a screenshot face, thumbprint protected entry back into the phone. And this particular student, that before he were to touch and to advance speech, if you will, the screen had timed out. I ask you this: how many times would that person have had to practice that speech to figure out that that was going to be a possible problem? Pregnant pause. In the past, I've had to deliver some lengthy speeches, and I've used a laptop as a teleprompter. And yeah, I'm a little old, if you will, but I had Microsoft Word document, and as I needed to advance the speech, and I absolutely right. If you practiced beforehand, you would know, but I knew how large I needed my font to be, so I would just do the lean in, tap down on the arrow to advance the speech, and then I could get back in the position where I could deliver again. I'm assuming that I probably just had bullet points with reminders, large enough that I could see them, but the laptop's still close enough that I can lean in and advance the speech. I've actually watched students take that suggestion, and one particular student used a PowerPoint presentation. Now, I didn't get to see the presentation per se, but student asked to use the remote, and then as needed to advance the speech, I just used a clicker. So again, I'm looking at my notes, but I'm also talking to you. And now here's me looking at my reminder notes, but now I'm also talking to you. Oh, I need to get to more notes. Oh, there they are. I gave this information to a group of students, and I had a student go out and find an app, if you will, a program that turns a speech into a teleprompter. Think late night TV shows, right? Every night, Jimmy Kimmel, right? Insert your favorite late night talk show person, Stephen Colbert. Aren't both of those people going to be canceled? By the time you watch this, they probably won't have. Anyway, late night TV show, talk show host person gets out and delivers monologue about current events and has all of these punchlines that are working and telling and delivering all of this information. Do you think they memorized that before the show? No, my goodness, there's no way. I would assume that they might have read it or looked over it once. I imagine maybe some of the pros didn't do that at all. But there is a screen that is loosely behind the camera with the words that are going up. So they are able to, and this is happening at some award show speeches as well. So where you see people deliver very eloquent speeches, and yet you're like, how did they just make that up on the spot, man? I think I could wing it like they can. They're not winging it. They had a written speech beforehand, gave it to plugged into teleprompter. Anyway, I have student go out, find program, uses laptop as teleprompter, has person next to, right, sets up laptop, has person next to, hey, when I start, I'm gonna give you the thing, and then go to press start. Right? It looks so good, right? Again, right, this was a student just being inventive, but it looked so good that I had another student in that room in the next round of speaking use the exact same approach. And that's how you know that it was effective, is if somebody in the audience, right, that's analyzing this person's speech is like, man, that looked really good. I'm going to do that too. I would say for all of your future work, if for whatever reason, you're welcome to use my laptop, you're welcome to use my HDMI cord, you're going to have to log into your own stuff, right? Or bring your own laptop. It has already been said now, we are loosely halfway through the semester. Don't use full sheets of paper. Full sheets of paper, again, put you in the position where you get to ride the roller coaster. It's making noises. I've watched students have the ruled paper, the lines. A student that pulls out of the ringed binder paper, so it's got all the little pieces hanging off to the side, blowing in the breeze, falling to the floor, looking like snowflakes. Spider, spider, spider. Way too much of a distraction. And it doesn't look, it's sending a message that you, speakers, should not want to be sending. And anyway, I told you not to do it. So, I mean, I hate to pull the parent card, right? But I can actually give you the science behind why you wouldn't want to do it. Okay, Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs got 3 stories, and on my first note card, if I'm delivering the Steve Jobs speech, it might say introduction, just so I didn't get it messed up with the other cards, right? And then I'd be like, hey, congratulations, graduating class Stanford 2005, check. I got 3 stories for you. And 3 stories, and that's it, right? And then now I'm going to go to the next card. And the next card is, here I'm looking at the card, but I'm actually looking at my laptop. Then you've got to trust that the dots will connect in the future. Now I want to make sure that, I know my adoption story, but I want to make sure that, I'm like, okay, make sure you stop with adoptive. So I'm adopted, but I don't need to know the stats behind who my mother was that adopted me, my biological mother versus those that actually adopted me. So I'm good, right? I just got that reminder because I'm nervous. So I'm like, okay, start with adopt. As I've been fleshing it out, or the people that wrote some of the clever witticisms in the speech for me, right, found this dropping out of the classes that I didn't want to be in versus dropping in on the ones I did. And so, because I think that's clever, I'm going to go ahead and make a reminder of myself to make sure that I get that one out at some point. So that's smart. You should have done it there. And, maybe just for the purposes of talking about how difficult that time was for me, maybe I'd have a reminder that said, Coke bottles and, Hare Krishna temple, and I had that information there just as a reminder. Oh, wait, calligraphy class, I want to make sure that I get that particular specific detail out as it leads to the fonts. Right. And then my second point, fired from Apple. Okay, I need that. But I know the people that were a part of that process, so I could use their names without having that all written down. And I know the companies that I developed after I was fired from Apple. Right. And then, as you're seeing it on the screen, 3, but these are all different cards, right? So I've got intro card, I've got point 1 card, point 2 card, point 3 card with just some mnemonic devices. Again, I want to make sure that I practice those and I flesh those out so I can meet time requirements if I have time requirements. And, maybe just for purposes of having a couple of reminders of how I want to conclude, I'd have a conclusion card, whole earth catalog that's going to tell me everything I need to know. And my mic drop, I think it's clever. I want to remind you, right, drum roll, to stay hungry and stay foolish. And so I could have that on there, but I could actually deliver that to you because I'm all working. So that's what talking points might look like. Again, remember the cons. You might rush your points if you don't practice them beforehand. I think that delivery has a lot of value. How much? We'll get there soon. And so as I watch students avoid being the sad penguin, I'm very pleased with myself. Nice job, Gibson. But I noticed that another character was developing. And there was one room, I talk about groupthink from time to time, as it might play, hopefully, as a positive in the room that you're in. But sometimes, maybe 50-50, groupthink can develop negative habits can be formed. Right? Please try to stay an individual in some ways and have your own individual thoughts. But I had a room full of students, go-getters, that decided that they were going to become the Reverend Nun. Now, the Reverend Nun has taken Gibson up on using the note card strategy, but has not heard me when I said make sure that you're using larger font. And so think about how thin those lines are, and hey, maybe they have eyesight that's better than mine. And so they're able to, right, especially as I continue to give them feedback, start to hold the note cards down here. But again, if you're only holding the note cards with one hand, they get shaky and maybe it's harder to find your spot. Right, so grab it with the other hand. But I want you to look at the Reverend Nun. There's a lot of things that are not happening that should be happening. So I need you speakers to really think about being more like this. Huh? And ha ha ha, Gibson, I jest, but I'm serious. So with this particular character is using their body and they're using their face to help create whatever message it is that they want. In this particular case, my visual aid is hopefully creating some sort of memorable idea or point for you as you move forward about the importance of delivery. Let's get all scientific-like. Nonverbal communication. If you found yourself so fascinated with the study of communication as I did, you could major in communication. Maybe not at the school where you're hearing this information. My apologies if that's the case. But if you were majoring in communication, you would probably take a whole course about nonverbal communication. And at this point, there is so much to be said about nonverbal communications within social media and within texting, but this is a public speaking class. So I'll avoid that particular part of this conversation other than what I just said there. Nonverbal communication. What does that mean? Let's simplify it. Denzel Washington said in the movie Philadelphia, "Talk to me, explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old." Students, I press you, here is your definition. No words, nonverbal communication, anything other than the words. As I advance our conversation, when I'm saying nonverbal, I'm talking about anything other than the words. Public speakers, for our purpose, nonverbal communication is delivery. How much communication is nonverbal? Pregnant pause so you can actually develop an answer. I want you to think in terms of percentage. Up to 93% of communication is nonverbal. And I want to explain this study because I know that there may be some scholarly people out there watching and they're already in their head because they're listening to respond, they're poo-pooing this information. This was an early, groundbreaking study, right? At the time, look at the number, 1967 date, okay? And what these people found in their study is up to 93% of communication could be considered nonverbal. Now, since that time, in an attempts to repeat said study and otherwise, they found that there were limitations, where this particular study was just like, it's a widespread 93%. Future versions and or critiques have found that this was really only determining how people felt. Maybe you could, up to 93%, accurately predict how people felt. Okay? But if you were to go out and to look at current studies now, more current studies, you're seeing information like 40% is tone or vice versa. 50% is the body, what you're doing physically. It still adds up to 90. Come on, watch the movie Hitch. I know it's dated. Will Smith, the date doctor. 90% of what you're saying is not coming out of your mouth.
60% of all human communication is nonverbal, body language. 30% is your tone. So that means that 90% of what you're saying ain't coming out of your mouth.
I want you to look at this person here, my little animation, my little character. If this were your friend and they were walking down the hall, right, and they're walking like this, I'm stuck in a chair, but look at the picture, right? What would you say to them? They're your friend, and so you care about them. The first thing that you would say, I've asked enough rooms, I already know. I enjoy a couple of the slang versions of this that I've heard, but, what's wrong? What's the matter? You okay? all of those phrases that I've heard on more than one occasion when I ask my students in a live situation to tell me what they think about this character, what this, if it was their friend, right? I do have some students that are sociopaths, and I'm like, well, why would you say that? What information have you really gathered to determine, to ask a question that is loaded? You didn't ask them what they were feeling. You made an assumption about how they were feeling based upon nonverbals. Let's move on for a moment. Next question that I have for you: how long does it take to make a first impression? Think The Price is Right. Da 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 da. Okay, that's not The Price is Right music, but pregnant pause. You come up with an answer. What do you think? Okay. For our purposes, again, you scholarly scholars, I know that there's a multitude of answers here, but for our purposes, I like the number 7 seconds. 7 seconds to make a first impression. There are a lot of articles that you would read that would say 3 seconds. For your fourth quiz, I'm asking you to watch a scholar that will tell you that it happens instantly. I see you, you see me, just that quickly. And I don't necessarily need to make any kind of eye contact with you. I just see you, boom, insta. That's your first impression. Speakers, we need 7 seconds. Okay, I need you to hope, pray to whatever God, universe, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever your faith is in, that you have 7 seconds. I'm talking about judgments. And you might be a good person and say, well, I don't make judgments. I forgive and I have... Hey, judgments have been saving your life. The reason that you're listening to this right now, and good for you, I appreciate that. The reason you're listening to this right now is because judgments have saved your life. If you were to, wherever it is that you may be right now, see a lion come around the corner inside your house, you're at the gym with your earbuds in and a lion, or you're walking around campus with your earbuds in and or watching video like this, and you were to see a lion, and it took you longer than 7 seconds to figure out what to do, I'm sorry, you don't get to reproduce. You lose. Nope. You don't get to advance the species. Right? Well, I mean, yeah, if it were me, I'd kick somebody over a tree. But everybody makes different decisions. But again, 7 seconds. And so maybe you've taken this course seriously, you've got this information, and so you're like, all right, 7 seconds to make a first impression. And you see your future sweetheart. You're going to ask him out on the coffee date. You're going to ask him to the dance, and nacho date. And you've got your clever line in your head, so you're... Hey, you get the stars in your... Okay, well, imagine the scenario. The 7 seconds, it's already transpired. It's already happened. The transaction was made before you got to deliver your wacky intro line. And before I lose you, let's put it in a real world situation. You're waiting for your interview because quite often, right, and you understand the rules, right? Show up early because early is on time. So you show up early. And I'd say generally they're usually running late, or maybe like right down to the second. So you better be early. Probably sitting in a lobby if this is a face-to-face interview, and you're waiting. So what would you do? I mean, it's just too easy. It's too common. It's the life that we live in. All right, you did that move right there. And now your turn. It's ready to go. Person says your name. All right, they're advancing toward, and of course I'm slowing it down, but you're gonna do all of that. Get up. What I said, 7 seconds. Right? By the time you're like, "Hey, it's nice to meet you," the first impression has already been made. And I want you to go back to one of my wacky characters that I think there's more truth in that than maybe you would initially, right? I watch presented to students and I go, yeah, this is right, but look at what, this is what you look like when you're on your cell phone. You're communicating information. Would you like to see it on the slide? It would look like this. But hey, right? They said your name, so you close it up. Oh, there you go. Oh, give them the nice, firm handshake. Something else happened that non-verbally that you may not have been aware of, but they're generally speaking as an administrative assistant, a receptionist, whatever word you would like to use in that area. And you had an opportunity to walk in and to be a human, to have a human interaction, to communicate with this person. Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Maybe you notice something. I'm thinking of an interview that I had last year. This person had a lot of German Shepherd statues and pictures and the such. It was very easy for me to strike up mini conversation, which actually extended into a lengthy conversation while I waited. But here's the thing, right? I could see that the person was interested, so I continued the conversation. Maybe you find yourself in a place where you can see that it's not the right move to have a conversation with this person or to keep it very brief transaction, right? Hey, okay, thank you. Okay, I'll sit down. Right? And what you may not be aware of is that your nonverbals are still being studied. They were studied in that insta moment when you walked in and said, yeah, I'm Brad Gibson. I'm here for the 2:30 interview. That would be weird if you said that. And they started gathering information. You sat down, you looked at cell phone, you waited for 10 minutes, and now when all the interviews are up, that person who's generally really good friends, like they go out to lunch, there's some sort of personal, connection between human connection between that person and the person that's doing the interviews or the head of the committee, and now they're talking about you. And you should want them to be saying good things, but you blew the opportunity because you were not being intentional. That's a word that I have to come back to multiple times. You need to be intentional. If I were to ask you why you were doing something non-verbally, you should be able to go, oh, well, because ... right? And now you're at a place where because you should be thinking about these things. Other people are thinking about speakers. As you are aware of, I have a handy dandy super slow kitchen timer that just travels with me everywhere I go, including places outside of the classroom, albeit weird. And I press this button right here, and you start walking in front of the classroom, and you turn around. And you've taken me up on the information that I've given you so far, so you pause. Right? You music people, beep, beep, beep. Or be it a small room, you scan the room. And then you start to, 7 seconds. It transpired in that moment. I said, okay, next speaker, you stand up, you start walking towards the room, you turn around, you hold nice pause, good for you. You start to say about 3 words and the 7 seconds is up. Why should that be important to you in this room and in other rooms? Because information about you is already being gathered. Holding the pause absolutely connotes confidence because time is ticking away. People are judging you, and when they see you hold that pause, their judgment is like, wow, that takes a lot of confidence. Wow, they look incredibly brave. And you are saying something in that pause that will be revealed later on down the semester with more specificity, other than just me saying confident. But it is, yeah. You're avoiding the fight or flight moment by waiting. But you're walking towards the front of the room, and I hope that you're not doing this. But I do have some people that decide to show their upper booty cheeks when they're walking towards the room. And I happen to notice, and I know that I'm not the only one. I mean, come on, this is a spider. You are pulling attention. I see what kind of drawers you're wearing. Fruit of the Loom, Tommy John, very nice. Now I know what to get you for Valentine's Day. But in all seriousness, when you turn around and now you start to present your very serious speech, how can you possibly expect me to trust you, to believe you, or to find you convincing in any such way? Because judgments were being formed in that 7 seconds about you before words started to even come out of your mouth. Speakers, you've done a good job. So people want to hear what you have to say. People want to listen to you. How long before an audience tunes out? How long before they go to Hawaii? Da, 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 da. Right? You're saying words and they're looking at you because they're good fake listeners. Most people are not good fake listeners. But up here, they're thinking about all the mean things that they're going to say to their significant other, or they're planning their grocery list, all while they're looking at you. But they're not hearing the words you have to say. Generally, people are not good fake listeners. But so they go to Hawaii. How long do you have? 10 seconds. So you got 10 seconds. I think that's an important number for you to have down as well. 10 seconds. 10 seconds before people start to go to Hawaii. So it is very important that not just the words, because I'm not talking about your attention getting your pre-planned opening line. I'm talking about how you're delivering it. It's very important that your nonverbals are communicating something, that what you are about to continue to do has significant value. Otherwise, your audience members will start to think about something that has more value than you as a speaker or the message that you have to communicate. So you have got to make things happen right away. Panic, panic, panic. That's what I'm trying to communicate to you. 93%, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, these numbers, I'm going to repeat them to you because this is my persuasive message to you. Why should you care about delivery? 93%, 7 seconds, 10 seconds. You've got to care about it because perhaps popular phraseology tells you that actions speak louder than words. Have you heard this? Most people raise their hand. I've heard this phrase. Sure. Actions speak louder than words. I ask students for examples, and I imagine they're probably just timid. Well, or no, maybe they're formulating one, but like, how long can you really wait? I'll give you a couple that are very common. I love you. I love you. I love you. What? That's interesting. You don't take me to the places that I want to go. When I ask you for help, you're always busy. Sometimes I just want you to listen to me, but again, you're never able to, you don't take my phone calls, and your texts are very brief. Okay, right, but I hear you. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. There are 5 different types of love languages, and only one of them is words of affirmation. The other 4 are about doings. They're about actions, giving gifts, quality time, acts of service. None of those have much to do with words really at all. Right? You've got one, words. So you better hope that if your approach to delivering love is, I love you, I love you, I love you, better hope you find somebody that is just like, that's how I receive love, and I don't receive any other love in any other way, because generally the ways in which you deliver versus the way they receive, if you want to understand why there's so much difficulty in having smooth, loving relationships, it's because you've got the way people deliver, the way people receive, and then here's another one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am sorry. But you do the same damn thing every time. Every time. So I hear you. You're sorry, you're sorry, you're sorry. But your actions are telling me that you're not sorry. Hey, psst, those are incongruent messages. The words say I'm sorry, but everything else says no. The words say I love you, but everything else says no. So it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Raise your hand if you've heard this. This is another popular phrase. You're going, yes, yes, Gibson, I'm aware. Really, but are you really? This one is about tone. Sarcasm, incongruent message, generally for the purposes of maybe delivering some sort of passive-aggressive insult. Maybe you have a relationship with somebody where you sarcastically say things to each other and it's meant to be humorous. There's a big difference between hello and hello. Same word, different tone. Again, though, this phrase is speaking to the power of delivery, the importance of delivery. And of course, my favorite, I saved it for last, a picture is worth 1,000 words. How many of you have heard a picture is worth 1,000 words? Yeah. Popular phrase. But this popular phrase is speaking to you about the importance of delivery. Public speakers, I'm always touched when I see students extend their notes here. You are the pitcher. You are the pitcher. When you stand in front of the room, in everything that you do, and we'll get there, other than the words, says 1,000 things. Right? So we hear you saying, public speaking is important, but everything else says you don't care. Everything else says it's really not that important. It's the pitcher. You, public speakers, are the pitcher. Now I have a healthy list of nonverbals, which is only really skimming the surface, if you will. But nonverbal communication is delivery. I'd go back in your notes, make sure that no words. Nonverbal communication is delivery. Why have I decided to call our section nonverbal or delivery? Nonverbal is delivery for you public speakers, right? I'm not here to study nonverbal, but it's delivery. Okay. You have been studying nonverbals your whole life. Since the moment that you came out of, but generally they do, I don't know, maybe it's work for your purposes. And, right, the ring light. But you're able to see your caregivers, just even when you're a wee little, you start to study nonverbals. You're already a scholar. But I'm going to ask you the questions, and I want you to tell me the answer. What does posture communicate? Some people will say confidence. That's true. And then I would ask you, what does confident posture look like? You know. Why is it that the military has everybody with their and they're all marching? What are they communicating with that march? Of course, it's a parade, and they're trying to show off to the person that held the parade, and they've been given orders, but they are communicating something to all of the other countries that are thinking, I wonder if we should invade that. They're all, this one's important for you. This is something to think about. Posture communicates something medically. If you think about it, medically, like that word. Health-wise, posture generally communicates something health-wise. My sad penguin. The reason that you ask your friends what's wrong is because they're, all right, and not everyone is, and so my apologies, but generally speaking, right, the spine is, I don't think my arm does that. Your parents tell you to sit up straight, right? My stepfather has the posture of a jumbo shrimp. He's needed both knees replaced and a hip surgery, and he still has got compression issues in his spine. So posture, good posture, communicates something about health. Why should that be important to you? Well, I mean, yeah, you should want to look as healthy as you possibly can in front of the room. But, you're going to be in an interview situation. And I say but jest, but I'm serious, right? Oh no, you're like me. Got it, lower back. But, sit up straight anyway. Sit up straight. Because you understand something about nonverbals, and that is, right? Because you want to look healthy. Look, everything looks good. Companies tend to not hire, I'd say future employees, but they're not going to be future employees. Companies tend to not hire people that don't look healthy, be it on a conscious or an unconscious level. They are making decisions when they look about you as to whether or not you are capable of performing the necessary duties. If they're listening to your answers, you've got good answers, but you're communicating something else. And depending upon the job, the posture might be communicating something, again, about whether or not you're capable of performing the jobs. And turnover is the most expensive, or one of the most large expenses that a company will face. Turnover, meaning somebody is sick all the time, right? And so they've got to fire them, or somebody showing up late all the time, right? So again, not able to perform necessary duties, so they've got to fire them, but they've got to hire somebody else and retrain somebody. So while they're hiring somebody, the people that could be doing other stuff. And so that decision of picking somebody that's capable is extremely important, and you know this. And so despite the fact that you've got something wrong with your back, you go in and you look all healthy, and then a week later you slip on the floor, you go, my back. And then, you get to, insurance claim. But, I jest, but seriously, now that you know, right? You can be intentional, make intentional choices about your posture. I want to come back to facial expressions with more depth and detail, but for right now, what I want you to understand about facial expressions is this is the epicenter of your nonverbals right here. I can't have you covering or shadowing your face because all of these muscles, all of these possible, I know that you've heard at some point someone says how many muscles it takes to smile versus to frown. There's a lot of actions happening here, and you want the audience to be able to see those. And albeit, I understand you don't have to be a Jim Henson Muppet like me and be all that expressive. I mean, not everybody is. You can be stoic as well. Steve Jobs showed relatively minimal emotional affect on his face, albeit in the moments where we could see his face. These are your God-given visual aids. Use them to communicate the messages that you should want to communicate. I'm going to give you a couple of possibilities. There are people from European cultures, or there are people that just grow up in families where they're more expressive. And lately I've noticed that I've really started to let my expressions go. I'm knocking over cups on tables. Right? But I say go forth. If this is you, just let it happen naturally. Perfect. No problem. I am going to talk about some things that you could do. I have to think about it beforehand, but some things that you could do intentionally to help add value. Because speaking with your hands generally adds value. But there are things that you should avoid doing. Things that don't add value or communicate messages you don't want to communicate. You sticking your hand in your pocket, right? I want you to think about the value of your message, because you've just said something about the overall value of your message when you stick your hand in your pocket. I know it's nice and warm and cozy. It's cold, and there you do have a lot of blood. Okay, the Stanford Business Group project told you that you should keep, this is your starting position, your arms are resting naturally at your side. When you come up in front of the room, this is what you would learn if you were in a competitive speaking class. This is where you should start, and this is where you should stop. Now, as soon as it's go time, go. All right. It's time to close, big finish, and then walk away. Don't stick your hand in your pocket. Don't fig leaf. Nobody wants to see your hands in front of your, because here's the thing. When you do that, and you should start watching for people to do this in picture, it pulls attention. Okay? Because again, look. Do you see what I want? You look over here. No. Look over here. It's very interesting, right? These are very fascinating. And then when you stick them, I don't want to, but you didn't know. But now you do, and you should do better. Tone, volume, pacing of voice. There are a lot of things happening with your voice. And I cannot use, I'm not educated in music or voice, and so I can't use all of the fancy tones that, or fancy words that someone in music instruction might be able to use. But I can tell you that speaking with a certain level of volume ensures that everyone can hear your message, because you're confident, you want everyone to hear your message, and albeit maybe go just a touch above what you think. Because if I've got a timid speaker, then I think everybody can hear me just fine if I speak like this. There's no problem here. Are you sure? You're going to want the tone to match the words. This is where, again, you're intentional. You should be looking at your story. You should be thinking of your content. And you should be thinking about the tone with which you are not reading an essay. You're not reading somebody else's essay. You are delivering a speech. To the best of your ability, think what tone would match this particular tone of story. Because if I wanted to, I could really, there's this idea, it's happening in persuasion. We're going to get there when we're talking about persuasion. But, if I get going like this, and then maybe I even get some thunder in my voice, because Martin Luther King Jr. wanted you to know that he has a dream, and it is important. And so he's going to thunder away, and it's going to be theatrical. But if I want you to go to the gym, I want you to go right now, okay? I need you to move right now, right? What I'm trying to do is to get some sort of immediacy in my tone. This whole rapid fire pace, again, like go. Maybe you find yourself going, okay, I'm a little anxious. So maybe you're more likely to move. If I'm like, come on, you gotta move. If I tell you to get off the couch, there's a reasonable chance that the more time you spend on the couch versus walking, could play a significant role in whether or not you live past 60 years old. Emotional content, emotional affect. Think about the number that I gave. It speaks to the power of your tone, your volume, and your pacing of your voice. And I'm assuming at this point we've probably already, if we have not though, pay attention, it's a lot of fun, talked about, we've done an in-class exercise with incongruent messages, and most of those incongruent messages are made with tone, volume, and pacing of voice. Baby, the Little Peepers song, Jeepers Creepers. Okay, that is kind of creepy. Peepers, eyeballs, what? Who? The windows to your soul? Not mine. I had to deliver a presentation to, I said had, I wanted to. I don't know why I want to do these things. Talk to future teachers about the importance of eye contact. And in doing that research, I found that it says here in the States, the right amount is 3 to 5 seconds. I mean, pardon my slang, but that's bananas, right? I mean, 3 to 5 seconds. I can't imagine 3 to 5 seconds. But it varies in culture. I mean, there are some countries that if you were to look certain people in the eye, especially for even, maybe at all, but for that long, you're insulting them. So it is important to know. But here in the States, 3 to 5 seconds tends to be the right amount. I can't have you be a sad penguin, speakers, and so I need you to make eye contact. And what I would tell my competitive speakers, because it makes them giggle, but then they don't forget, is I say it's sweet love. And what does that look like? Okay, so you're watching the camera right now. I'm speaking with you. I've got 3 other people in the room, and here it goes. That is sweet love. If you've got 10 people in the room, you can pull it off and you go back to people. But there's something happening, right? Your posture, your posture is, I know, bad gesture in some cultures. Your head is up, which is right, chin up. It's great. and you are making intimate contact with your audience members. And this is a novice-based class, most likely, if you were to consider yourself to be a novice speaker. I can give you a really lovely hack. I know, because again, I did use that word intimate, and there are some people that are not ready for that level of intimate. Making eye contact for a significant, albeit insignificant, varies again from culture to culture. It's too much. It's overwhelming. It's too stimulating. No problem. Look at people's foreheads. When I'm judging you, right, camera, I'm looking at your forehead right now. And as a matter of fact, if there's a room full of people, there is a room full of people, at least up here in my head, I am talking to a sea of people, but I am looking at their foreheads right now. So you can see I'm not making intimate contact with you. There it is, a little bit. But I'm looking at everyone's foreheads. But it looks like, say, to other people, right? You didn't make it with me per se, but I think you're looking at the audience. So look at people's foreheads, right? If you don't want to see the RBFs or that level of intimacy, that moment is too much, it's totally fine. Look at people's foreheads. I will be grading based on your ability to either do it or fake it. But here's the thing, when I'm determining whether or not you're reading in regards to eye contact, here you go. This right here, no, that's not it. Nope, I'm sorry. This doesn't count as eye contact. Don't waste your time. You might as well just read, okay? You gotta hold it, which means, oh no, you can't look at the notes for a moment, right? You gotta hold it. You gotta maybe give a little, right? Don't just do it with me. Sometimes people just do it with me. Right, but this, nope. Did you see it? No, I want you to see it because again, it's not gonna, don't. Speakers, I want you to make intentional movements in the room. And what I mean by that, and now this is something that you would learn in a competitive speaking class, but I want to see you use it as well. You have broken your speech up into significant chunks. And I want you to hold different spots in the room. We have talked about the position which is squared up. If I've got a room full of people that are like this, I want to be right here. Room full of people like this, I want to be squared up, which is right here to start. But my speech is broken up into chunks. And so for my first chunk, my first major point, which could last, 30 seconds to 3, 4, 5 minutes, I'm going to be over here in this chunk of the room, in this spot in the room. Now I've got another chunk. Right? Generally speaking, at least in this class, I want you to use the rule of threes. So then your second major point, the second piece of your story, Steve Jobs' second story, you're going to be over here in this part of the room. I don't know. You can switch this button on, right? But again, there's one really key important thing to know, right? So then that would mean number 3 might be over here. Now it's time to conclude, and so be it. Wherever you are in the room, you come back to the squared up position. And now, in the fact that this place has been held sacred, if you will, for your introduction and your conclusion, people know, oh, there they are, they're back in the center. You're using transition words that might indicate, right? So to close, you've walked back to the center of the room. So to close, you've dropped witticism at the end, thunder. You've held pause, and then you go away. Be intentional with the places that you hold in the room. And here is the value in that. I'm going to talk about it more there's a reason why there's an asterisk next to result space. But when you're over here, you're giving people a neck workout. And I was looking at you here like this, but then you moved over here. Now I got to go, hey, what are you doing over there? Move over here. Like, hey, what are you doing over there? Let's come back over here. But now the audience is literally following along with your written structure, the written structure of your speech. Audience is following along. And if you were in a situation where it was, some sort of sales pitch, or you had the ability to just go ahead and give up on some people, well, you would know who to give up on, right? I might stop making eye contact, or I might stop focusing on people. If I'm standing over here, I'd focus. People are still looking up over here, but I'm standing over here. I might drop them. Now, as an educator, I can't really do that. And as somebody that's trying to educate people to work on, because eye contact here in the States is a trait of an active listener. I should say that, right? And so I have to ensure that you are making occasional eye contact with me. I have to ensure that you are not staring at the floor because you're being rude. But again, right? So you, as a speaker in this class, by the way, you get to make choices. You could probably drop some people that are not giving you the attention. And since I knew that there was something else that I wanted to say about eye contact, I'm glad I'm not too far gone, is that make eye contact in the room with friendly faces. I absolutely give you permission to not make eye contact with people that are giving you ugly face. I do the best I can to hold a poker face, right? But sometimes I am scrutinizing, and my scrutinizing face may not actually indicate, so you don't have to look at me at all. I just need you to pretend eye contact. And if you are making eye contact, or you feel comfortable doing that, you can. If somebody's giving you ugly face, I drop them. Don't, all that's going to do is get inside your head, and who knows what's going on with that person, right? And what I would say to you again, though, is because there is so much variance in the nonverbals, there is a chance that people that are not, if you were in a sales pitch, you don't have to call them out, because they might be listening. This one, again, might be a matter of that intimacy, I think it is worth mentioning too. I was in my 30s, early 30s, and I had a friend of mine say, "Brad, why don't you make eye contact? You're never making eye contact." And he was a very heavy eye contact person. But when he said that, what it brought to my attention was, I grew up in a home where making eye contact was a dangerous thing. Well, I grew up in a difficult home. And so I was raised, but there's so much that I've learned since then. And I can tell you that when I was performing and making that eye contact, developing a relationship using eye contact mattered. When I was able to do it, it added significant value to my overall work. All right. What does clothing communicate? When I ask that question, students will often say prepared. I love that. Prepared. Sometimes I wonder, do they think that that's an answer I want to hear? I don't know. But you know what? I do enjoy hearing that people will say, when you are dressing a particular way, it indicates preparation. That's true. That you thought you knew it was speech day. You're like, oh, geez, I probably should not let people see my Fruit of the Loom or my Tommy Johns. You thought about it. Oh, and it communicates something. No? Professionalism. It can communicate professionalism. There is another P that I think has value if we're using the insert what that's called. Alliteration. P is for personality. It also communicates that So I encourage you to find a way to make a meshing of all of those things to communicate a more effective message. What is the nature of your speaking event? Where are you interviewing? And clothing can, there can be alterations that are made, like a suit and tie for every interview might be too much. You may not want to be, greatly overdressing the dress code of the people that are interviewing you. But I say, a nice balance of all of those. And at the very least, again, the word that is so important is be intentional. I should be able to ask you, why did you make that choice? And of course, I would hope that your answer is not that because I'm tired. Because was that the point of your speech, right? Your speech, your interview was communicating, I'm tired. Well, no, you're probably communicating, I want this job, or I want a passing grade, but your clothing, right? Because I asked you and you said, oh, well, I wore this because I'm tired, right? Well, that's an incongruent message. You should be able to explain why I want this job or I want a passing grade, and your jammies creates a congruent message. Right? And when you can do that, then I can go, well, okay, I see it. Hey, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I had a student come up in front of the room and he's wearing a tank top and he's got flip-flops on. I'm just, I'm like, what? And this student had been really diligent in following along all semester long, and here he is talking about different beaches in North Carolina, right? There's this one, I really encourage you to go to this one. Don't go to this one. And I'm listening to the words of the speech, and at the same time, I'm kind of going, what in the book? Did you catch it? It was absolutely brilliant. The tank top was advertising the beach that he was suggesting that you go to. And I just, a little tear rolled down, because I know, I was like, man, what a creative thinker. Talk about being intentional. Man, good for you. Here's what I'll say about hairstyle. Ultimately, the reason that this appears on the list is because I need to be able to see your face. It does communicate something about you personality-wise, and it could communicate something about you preparation-wise. But again, this is a novice-based class, and so again, just please avoid, covering your face. Don't let it cover your face. Personal space. Personal space. There, here in the States, again, I should mention this nonverbal does vary from culture to culture, but personal space, there tends to be a right amount here in the States. And what is it? Well, I'll ask you this instead. Right? During the pandemic, because here's where everybody gives a choral response. In the pandemic, it was very important, and so they just told you, and everybody says now 6 feet. Okay, but that's not accurate. I'll be honest with you, I was very sad when that was happening, because I thought, oh man, I'm not going to be able to teach this lesson the same way. But here in the States, this is the right amount. How would you greet somebody for the interview? Now, it might have changed a little bit, but it's still like this right here. And then where are they? They're like right here. That's weird. And they're on the other side. And that is the right amount if I don't know you. I'm confident enough to get in your space this far, and you're on the other side that far. Why do I tell you to square up with a particular level of closeness? Because you're communicating, I'm confident enough to get in your space right here. The further that you go back away from this position, from the people that are in the front row, and or say like your interviewer when you first greet them, the more you look like you are retreating, the more you are communicating nonverbally that you are scared, and I get it, you are, but this space right here communicates I'm confident. But let's talk about communication norms here in the States and the value and right the bare minimum of knowing, right? If I don't know you and you get right here, right, and you get right here, you give me the opportunity to do that right there, and I have bad form, so I would break my wrist. But right, which I don't want, right, but you have friends, right? Well, okay, well, I say I don't know, maybe not, but at the bare minimum, you know, the bro hug, you give them the and then get away from me, right? But that would be weird if you brought me in like this. I don't know you. Depends, right? If you go to Europe, you don't have to know anybody at all. And you get in very close. But those personal space can vary from culture to culture. But here in the States, we're operating on what generally is the norm, right? And you let generally people in your life, like say your significant caregivers that you care a lot about, right? They can get right in there. You know, this is where you are with your sweetheart, but this is not where you would be with your audience at a speaking engagement. But really the front row, it should be about right there. Now, this is the thing. The people in the back row really can see the retreating, right? Especially, right, the people that are way in the back. That's why you want to be as close as you can without alienating. You don't want to alienate the people here, but you want to be as close as you can because you're trying to communicate confidence with the people in the back row, and they absolutely see the retreat. There you go back. Okay. How can you tell? People will communicate things with you non-verbally. Oh, math teachers, they don't know good form. And so when they help student over here, they do this move right here, and the student over here that was so diligently working now moves away like this. And why did they move away? Because you invaded their space. And when you invaded their space, they stopped working hard on their in-class assignment. When I lean in or I get too close to the person right here and they start to back up, they're not focused on your message, because what is happening in that moment is there is a mini moment of fight or flight. You've invaded their comfort zone, and so they are trying to get back to that space of comfort, and in that moment they're not hearing what you have to say. And these little micro communications are also have value with eye contact as well, because if I were to start to look at you like this and you did that, right, and I really want this job. No, I really think that we should go out on a second date. I think that you're not feeling it right now. I'm really feeling it. I just looked away. I can't even make lengthy eye contact with the camera. Okay. But why does that have value for you? Because you are trying to deliver the most effective, well-received message possible. I love you. I'd like to go on another date with you. I really want this job. The audience is communicating things with you non-verbally, and you should be listening to them, and listening to them absolutely has something to do with non-verbals. Why do you move? Here we go. So I can take advantage of my asterisks. Why do you move over here? Because just by the space that you are holding in the room, you are developing, you have a more intimate space between you and those audience members. Now, you don't forget about these people over here. You're still going to give them eye contact, but you also know that they deserve some attention as well. But this is serving multi-purpose. And so when you come over here, the relationship is more intimate because of the space that you're holding in the room, and you want to try to deliver that kind of relationship building or closeness within the relationship. Of course, all within the boundaries of the message that you're trying to communicate. But that is part of the reason why you move. If you have a very good educator, that educator is moving throughout the room for a multitude of reasons. For their purposes, they might be invading somebody's space on purpose to communicate, pay attention. But they don't have time to stop talking. They don't have time to interrupt the lesson to go, hey, you with me. Now everybody looks over there. The whole class has become chaos. No, you know what the easiest way to handle that is to non-verbally just go over there and get in their space and like, But for your purposes, you're probably trying to get people to listen to your informative or to be moved by your persuasive speech. And so you don't want to invade their space and make them feel uncomfortable. But again, right, there are people, the understanding of the power of that, right? Because as you lean in on the coffee date and that person leans away and you're like, geez, I don't know why I can't get a second date. Well, that's because you're getting way too close too soon. Right? But you're not listening to the audience. What does pronunciation communicate? For 8 years in counting, I've taught public speaking in the South. And y'all have an accent. And if you're being honest with me, what do people think? Generally, it's a stereotype, right? Before somebody goes, get him fired. There's a stereotype and it's wrong, but it's a judgment, right? The stereotype is a judgment. So there's a judgment about the way in which you're pronouncing words. It's not true. I've worked with close to 2,000 students in the South, and I've been around some people that it's intimidating. I do have a decent read on potential or like the possibilities, or maybe it'll believe in IQ, right? But I've been around some people where the brightness, it's scary. I'm like, whew, I'm glad I'm teaching you something that I really know about, because I can feel you're about to change the world, right? Once you get released from this prison cell they call a school, well, what do I have to do, Gibson? Well, put it on tape, And they have a Southern accent. So it's not true, but you should be aware of it. And you should be aware of it because it also communicates something about whether or not you're prepared. Speakers, I'll say this all for the rest of my life that I teach public speaking. Speak within your range. Use the words that you are familiar with and that you are comfortable with. Because I don't want you to be like this person. I had a student delivering their final speech, and they took me up on the idea that they should be talking about something that they care about or something that they enjoy about. Enjoy about? What did I say about pronouncing? And so they decided to talk about hunting, and a bulk of the story that they were telling in regards to hunting was with their father. And when they went out with their father to hunt, they, because they did it often, they would recreate. They would go outside and they would recreate. And the first time I heard it, as an instructor and stuff, I think, well, we trip on our words and we mispronounce words we're comfortable with. I mean, it happens. Students, God, I don't know why, did not take me up on the idea of trying to tell the story in a more intimate way. But, he continued to recreate. And if you haven't been picking up on what The Rock is cooking, and do we really even use that word that often? We go out and hunt. It's a sportsman activity. Sport, maybe? No, recreate. The word is recreate. It's not recreate. If you use that word often, if you were like me and my father, we go outside and hunt, you would say the word, as it's pronounced correctly within that context, recreate, not recreate.
Perhaps perfect timing, but this is where my phone decided that it had heard enough. And so here is where we shall conclude. This ends Delivery Part 1. Stay tuned for Delivery Part 2.